In the heart of the wild, where nature's rules are absolute and survival is never guaranteed, a lone wolf pup found itself in the gravest of dangers. Encircled by towering bears, their massive bodies radiating raw power, the tiny creature was utterly trapped, helpless, doomed. But just when all hope seemed lost, something astonishing happened, an event so unexpected, so beyond comprehension, that even the wilderness itself seemed to pause. Life in the untamed forest is a delicate dance between strength and vulnerability, a place where each day is a battle between predator and prey. It was on a serene morning, bathed in golden sunlight, filtering through the towering trees that Shadow, an adventurous young wolf pup, wandered beyond the protective reach of her pack. Driven by boundless curiosity, she roamed through the undergrowth, blissfully unaware of the lurking dangers that lay ahead. Then, the air grew heavy. A foreboding silence fell, replacing the forest's usual symphony of rustling leaves and chirping birds. A primal instinct surged within Shadow, a warning far older than time itself. But it was already too late. From the depths of the trees, enormous figures emerged. Bears, massive, powerful, and territorial, surrounded the tiny pup, their dark eyes gleaming with intent. The largest of them, a dominant male, stepped forward, his presence alone enough to send tremors through the earth. Every muscle in Shadow's small body tensed. There was no escape. Unbeknownst to the bears, a group of wildlife photographers and naturalists had been observing from a hidden distance. They watched in horror, their breath catching in their throats as nature's brutal laws prepared to claim yet another innocent life. But then, something unthinkable happened. The lead bear hesitated, its piercing gaze locked onto Shadow's trembling form. And for a fleeting moment, the relentless cruelty of the wild seemed to falter. Perhaps it was recognition. Perhaps it was something beyond explanation. But in that instant, the inevitable shifted. Then, chaos erupted. One of the younger bears, impatient and aggressive, lunged without warning. Claws slashed through the air, teeth bared in a furious attack. The delicate balance shattered into pure, unrestrained violence. Shadow, caught in the storm of fury, bolted. Her tiny paws pounded against the earth as she wove through the chaos, her survival hinging on every desperate step. The once peaceful forest had transformed into a battlefield, where only the strongest endured. The onlookers, frozen in shock, watched the tiny pup disappear into the unknown, her fate uncertain. But the story was far from over. What happened next would not only rewrite the laws of nature, but challenge everything we believe about the instincts of the wild. Shadow's encounter was not just a test of survival, it became a legend, a story of resilience, courage, and an unbreakable will to defy the odds. And as the whispers of the forest carried her tale, the world beyond the trees would soon come, to know the name of the wolf pup who dared to challenge fate itself. Every new revelation, every desperate appeal from the rescuers, and every passionate plea from the digital world all converged into an undeniable truth. Shadow's struggle was more than just a fight for one life. It was a challenge against indifference, a reclamation of compassion's power. Just when it seemed that the fragile wolf pup was doomed under the merciless circle of bears, a sudden, eerie silence gripped the clearing. The tension, already thick, shifted in a way no one could have predicted. The dominant bear, eyes gleaming with predatory intent, took a step forward, poised to deliver the final strike. But then, something changed. Instead of an expected snarl or the inevitable lunge, the bear stopped, its massive head lowering as if shackled by an invisible force of sorrow. For a long, breathless moment, the forest itself seemed to pause. Then, in the silence, the dominant bear emitted a haunting wail, an almost human cry soaked in despair. It was not a roar of dominance, but a lament that sent shivers through every witness, shaking the very foundation of the moment. The other bears, stunned by their leader's unexpected sorrow, hesitated. Their once unified aggression faltered, their eyes darting between each other in bewilderment. The seamless predatory front cracked, unraveling into uncertainty. Then, from the dense shadows at the forest's edge, a new presence emerged. It moved, with the lethal grace of a specter, sleek, sinuous, and calculating. Golden eyes, cold and cunning, reflected the moon's glow. A lynx. With a fluidity that belonged to the unseen masters of the wild, the lynx prowled into the clearing, its muscles rippling beneath its spotted coat. The dominant bear, still drowning in its inexplicable sorrow, let out a roar. Not of confidence, but of defiance. It was an attempt to rally its shaken kin, to reclaim control over the unraveling chaos. But the lynx was swift, a blur of lethal precision. The feline predator launched itself into the midst of the disoriented bears. Claws unsheathed, it wove between them, striking with devastating agility. The air erupted with a cacophony of growls, roars, and the piercing yelps of an unexpected battle. What had been a looming execution for Shadow turned into a frenzied melee of clashing titans. The tiny wolf pup, paralyzed with terror, could do nothing but watch as the once impenetrable circle of bears fractured into chaos. Fur flew, fangs clashed, and the ground trembled beneath the titanic struggle. In the ensuing pandemonium, a small window of escape opened, yet Shadow remained frozen, caught between fear and fate. Then, as abruptly as the battle had begun, a terrible revelation emerged from the carnage. The dominant bear, once an unshakable force, collapsed, not just from the lynx's brutal onslaught, but as if weighed down by an unbearable burden. Its massive body heaved with labored breaths, its strength ebbing away not just from wounds but from something deeper, an unspoken sorrow that had drained the fight from its very soul. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The lynx, sensing something beyond instinct, paused mid-leap. The remaining bears, now leaderless and shaken, circled their fallen alpha with expressions that softened from fury to something almost mournful. Hidden among the trees, cameras trembled in the hands of wildlife photographers, their lenses capturing a scene both brutal and mesmerizing. What had begun as a simple predator's attack had unraveled into something far greater, something unnatural, something orchestrated. And in that moment, Shadow, trembling and fragile, realized the tides had irreversibly shifted. The force that had once sought to crush her had splintered, its unity shattered by unseen hands. This was no ordinary battle for survival. This was something more, something manipulated. As whispers of this event spread, the world beyond the forest awakened to its significance. Journalists dissected the footage, scientists debated the inexplicable behavior of the dominant bear, and the internet erupted with speculation. Some called it an anomaly, a mere quirk of nature. Others, those who dared to see beyond the surface, spoke of deeper forces at play. Conservationists sifted through historical accounts of similar disturbances. Locals shared eerie testimonies of past encounters, tales of injured animals bearing unnatural wounds, of strange figures lurking at the forest's edge. Even social media ignited. Hashtags like Tashku Wild Reckoning and Ashken Hope for Shadow trending, turning the lone wolf pup into an emblem of something far greater than herself. Then, the theories began. Was this a symptom of environmental imbalance, a fractured ecosystem lashing out in chaos? Or was it something darker, an influence beyond nature's raw instinct, a sinister manipulation hidden beneath the guise of the wild? As activists, scientists, and everyday witnesses debated, the forest itself remained unchanged, silent as it had always been. But for those who had seen the dominant bear's fall, who had heard the chilling lament of a creature known only for its ferocity, there was an undeniable, unsettling truth. This was no mere act of nature. This was a reckoning. And in its center, a fragile wolf pup named Shadow stood, unaware that she was now more than just a survivor. She was a symbol, a question, and perhaps the key to an answer no one was ready to face. Amid the mounting challenges, Emily's family, who had taken in the baby wolf, Hope, after an emotional plea, found themselves struggling with their own dilemmas. What began as an act of compassion soon became a source of internal conflict. The growing turmoil in the forest made them question whether Hope was truly safe under their care. Could unseen dangers lurking in the shadows put her at risk? And how could they balance their desire to protect her with the looming threat of human interference? These fears led to sleepless nights and deep family discussions as they grappled with the responsibility of nurturing a wild creature in an unpredictable world. But this wasn't just a single act of kindness. It had transformed into a larger saga of survival and morality. Hope's story was no longer just about a rescued cub, but about the fragile connection between humans and nature, a bond continuously threatened by greed and technology. With each revelation, the stakes grew higher, forcing the community to confront not only their immediate concerns but the systemic forces shaping their world. Jack, at the forefront of the investigation, found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. As he pored over the evidence by the dim glow of his campfire, his mind wavered between instinct and reason. The deep, deliberate claw marks and the eerie discovery of a tracking device hinted at something far more sinister than nature's brutality. Was the wilderness itself being manipulated? The thought sent a chill down his spine. How does the natural become a weapon? He scribbled in his journal, his hand shaking with anger and sorrow. Meanwhile, Officer Ryan, once a detached enforcer of the law, was undergoing a transformation of his own. The sight of the fallen bear and the retreating lynx haunted him. He had always believed nature to be indifferent, yet now he saw it being twisted by unseen hands. Every living thing has a breaking point, he murmured in the quiet of his cabin, struggling with the burden of knowing that something darker was at play. The pressure from the community only deepened his turmoil, as public demand for justice clashed with the slow, methodical process of uncovering the truth. Town meetings turned into battlegrounds of ideology. Some demanded swift action, insisting that those responsible for the cruelty be punished. "We cannot allow our wilderness to be exploited like this," one activist declared. Others urged caution, warning against emotional reactions that could compromise the investigation. "If we let passion override reason, we may never uncover the true culprits," a council member cautioned. The divide only grew wider, mirroring the conflict within Emily's home, where discussions about Hope's safety became more intense. While her children pleaded to keep the wolf safe, her husband feared drawing unwanted attention. "I just want her to be okay," whispered one of the children, tugging at Emily's sleeve. That simple, heartfelt plea echoed the universal conflict between love and fear. Then came the media storm. Sensationalized headlines, endless online debates, and viral hashtags like Wild Justice and Save Shadow flooded social platforms. Some dismissed the incident as mere wildlife aggression. Others claimed it was a sign of a more insidious human interference. Whispers of past occurrences with eerie similarities began surfacing, fueling speculation that this was no isolated event. Then, a breakthrough. Dr. Elena Morales, a reclusive environmental researcher, reached out to Jack with disturbing data. There had been an increase in unnatural disturbances in wildlife behavior, possibly linked to human technological interference. Her words resonated. If we let technology control nature, we lose the essence of the wild. The revelation reframed the tragedy into something much larger, a battle against the silent encroachment of human influence on nature's delicate balance. The turning point came when Jack discovered something strange in his investigation: anomalies. In his photographs, a faint, almost imperceptible glimmer appeared near a cluster of trees in multiple shots taken on different nights. What had seemed like a mere trick of the light soon hinted at something more: covert surveillance? A hidden observer? That same night, his phone buzzed with a cryptic message from an unknown number. "Not all eyes in the forest are wild. Look where shadows hide." The attached image, a blurred thicket at the forest's edge, sent shivers down his spine. Someone, something, was watching. As Jack and Officer Ryan dug deeper, the conspiracy thickened. A local journalist, Maria Delgado, revealed that corporate entities might be behind these disturbances, Are they monitoring and manipulating wildlife for profit? She asked, her voice hushed in a secretive meeting. The question struck a nerve. What if Shadow's injuries weren't just acts of cruelty but collateral damage in a much larger scheme? The idea that the wild was not just under attack by poachers but by corporations seeking control over its resources sent shockwaves through the community. Emily, too, felt the growing tension. Hope had begun acting strangely, staring at windows as if sensing a presence outside. What if we brought something dangerous to our doorstep, she wondered. With every news report, every whispered rumor, it became clear this wasn't just about one wolf. This was about an entire ecosystem being reshaped by unseen hands. Public discourse shifted from outrage over Shadow's suffering to broader fears of surveillance and exploitation. This is no longer about one tragedy, a community, member argued at a town hall meeting. This is about protecting the last wild places from becoming commodities. In the shadows of the town's growing unrest, new developments emerged. Mysterious figures in the woods, unsettling encounters, and anonymous tips hinting at an elaborate operation unfolding in secrecy. What had started as an act of rescue was now a high-stakes mystery, entangling everyone in its web. As the investigation pressed on, one question lingered in the minds of all involved. Could they save what remained of the wild before it was too late? The wilderness is not just a backdrop for survival. It breathes, reacts, and tells stories. Dr. Helena Morales, an environmental researcher, warned the community that recent disturbances in the forest were no coincidence. Her data suggested human interference, illegal surveillance, habitat destruction, or something more sinister. Meanwhile, Jack, a dedicated investigator, began receiving cryptic letters signed The Guardian. One read, "When the forest weeps, listen to its whispers. The truth hides in the shadows of your past." These messages stirred childhood memories, linking his personal journey to the mystery unfolding in the wild. Tensions escalated when a brutal clash between bears and a lynx left a young wolf pup, Shadow, barely alive. Rescuers intervened, sparking a heated debate. Should humans step in or let nature take its course? Activists argued for intervention, while conservationists warned against disrupting the natural balance. The controversy deepened when an anonymous email, projected onto a town hall screen, exposed a chilling truth. These violent disruptions were not random. Dr. Morales' research hinted at engineered injuries on wildlife, pointing to a hidden force exploiting the forest for profit. Investigative journalist Mark Rivera then revealed damning financial records linking a local businessman to an illegal wildlife operation. As the community stood at a crossroads, Jack made a bold declaration. This isn't nature's brutality. It's calculated cruelty. We must act. Legal proceedings were set in motion and an oversight committee was formed. Social media buzzed with support under BAW Wild Justice. As Jack lingered in the clearing, staring at the scarred earth, he whispered, "We've taken the first step. Now the real fight begins." The battle for justice and the soul of the wild had only just begun. Protect the vulnerable. His words resonated in the heavy air, a call to confront the harsh realities that had been laid bare. Officer Ryan, standing beside him, added with steely determination that belied his earlier hesitation. "We've seen the brutality. We've felt the fear. But in this moment, the fate of this little soul, Shadow, hangs in the balance. Do we let nature's cruel cycle continue, unchecked? Or do we stand for something more? Something that honors the sanctity of life no matter how small?" His gaze swept over the gathered faces, some hardened by loss, others softened by compassion. As if in response, the storm overhead momentarily broke, sending a sharp beam of light through the dense canopy. In that fleeting illumination, the weary yet resolute expressions of the team and the devastation surrounding them were laid bare. Grief for the suffering, anger at the unseen forces manipulating nature, and a flicker of hope that through decisive action, they might yet change fate. A voice rose from within the crowd, trembling yet unwavering. It was Emily, the woman who had first taken Shadow into her care. "We cannot allow this violence to define the story," she declared, her voice cutting through the tense silence. Today, we choose to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Today we decide that the wild is not a realm of unchecked cruelty, but a world where compassion can tip the scales and restore balance. Her words sent ripples through the gathered crowd, reinforcing the resolve that had been building for weeks. And then, an unexpected revelation propelled the moment into its final decisive phase. Dr. Rivera, a local wildlife expert, stepped forward, holding a waterproof folder filled with freshly gathered evidence, maps of unusual animal movement patterns, photographs of disrupted hierarchies in the forest. She spoke with a calm yet urgent tone. "This is not random," she stated. "The disturbances, the violence, they are symptoms of a larger, orchestrated interference, a deliberate manipulation that threatens not only shadow, but the very balance of our ecosystem." A heavy silence followed. The weight of her words transformed the moment from a tragic mishap to a battle against something greater. The community was faced with a choice: to allow nature's brutal cycles to continue or to intervene, dismantling the unseen forces at play and safeguarding the wild. As the storm eased into a gentle drizzle, Officer Ryan's voice rose once more, steady and charged with conviction. "We have seen the cruelty, we have felt the pain, and now we have the evidence. We must act, not just for shadow, but for every creature suffering under a system that values power over life." His words sealed the decision in the hearts of those present. A collective breath held, a moment of unbreakable resolve. The final phase of their fight for justice had begun. The storm had passed, but its echoes remained. As the first warm rays of sunrise filtered through the trees, a profound calm settled over the community. It was a calm born not of relief but of resolution. Shadow's story had begun with desperation, fear, and cruelty. But it had become something more. A symbol of resilience, a rallying cry for justice. What started as a harrowing moment when a lone wolf pup was surrounded by bears, a violent confrontation that nearly ended in tragedy, had now evolved into a movement, one dedicated to healing, reform, and accountability. Standing before the newly established wildlife sanctuary, Officer Ryan addressed the crowd. His transformation from detached enforcer to compassionate guardian was evident in his steady gaze. "We have taken our first steps," he said, "but this journey is far from over. We must continue to stand together, to hold accountable those who exploit our natural world, and to ensure that every life, from the mightiest predator to the smallest pup, is treated with the respect it deserves." His words were not just a call for justice, they were a pledge, a promise to protect, a commitment to change. Jack, who had documented every step of the battle in his journal, stepped forward at a local memorial service for the animals lost to greed and cruelty. His voice was steady, but the weight of emotion was clear. "That day," he began, "when the forest was torn apart by violence and uncertainty, we saw the worst of nature, but we also saw something else. Resistance. Hope. A reminder that even in the darkest moments there is light. It is our duty to protect that light." Local media, once fixated on sensationalizing the conflict, had shifted its focus to the power of unity and collective action. Social media buzzed with support. Hashtags like Wild Justice and Protect Our Wild spread like wildfire, turning what was once a small community's fight into a global movement. For Emily, the experience had become deeply personal. Sitting on her porch watching the sun rise over the treetops, she reflected on the wild's beauty, its cruelty, and its power to inspire. "The wild isn't separate from us," she said in an interview. "It's a part of who we are. The courage of a small pup, the defiance in the eyes of a bear, the sorrow of that chaotic moment. It all reminds us that our fate is intertwined with nature. We must honor that bond, protect it, let it guide us toward a more compassionate future." In the weeks that followed, legal proceedings moved forward. The forces that had manipulated the wild for their own gain faced the full weight of justice. Policies were introduced to prevent future exploitation, ensuring that any interference with nature would be met with swift action. A movement had been sparked, one that would redefine how society interacted with the natural world, ensuring that cruelty would never again be allowed to flourish unchecked. Shadow's story was more than a tale of survival. It was a symbol of hope, a beacon of justice, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, a single act of compassion could ignite the spark of change. Thank you for being part of this journey of discovery, resilience, and justice. If Shadow's story has moved you, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Together, we can continue to protect our wild and nurture hope in every corner of our world.